Hello everyone, I'm Houston Brown, and in this video we're going to review and show you how to set up the new DJI Osmo Mobile. Let's get to it. All right, the first thing we're going to need to do is set this thing up so that the iPhone is balanced in the gimbal. So we have an adjustment here on the back. Right here, you just simply turn this left or right and that will open and close this claw here on the front. I call it a claw. So you're just going to take your phone and slide it on in here. Now this is at its minimum setting, that's horizontally. There's a screw on the back that comes factory set just to this smallest default. It just so happens to fit an iPhone 6s just fine. And you can see here as I'm turning it, it's staying perfectly balanced. Right wherever I put it, it just pretty much stays there. And that's the way you want it before you turn it on. If you got a bigger phone, you can use this set screw here to move this arm in and out to balance it. Then once it's all up and once it's all balanced, we're just going to start the DJI Go app. And I've already synced it up once, so now when I turn on the Osmo, you can see the app just comes up and we're ready to go. And you can see as I spin it here left and right, tilt it forwards and backwards, it's working just like a charm. So now let's talk about all the functionality that's in the DJI Go app. All right, so if your app comes up and this blue icon for the Bluetooth is on, that means the Bluetooth is not connected. I'm sure you can get that connected. You can see here it's already recognized it, so I just tap on it and it connects right up. So now the next thing we want to take a look at is just the home icon, which is going to take you to the home page of the DJI app, which, sorry for the, I don't know why it did that. I think because I'm recording to the iMac, it messed up. But anyways, all that does is take you home and show you some of the things you can do on the DJI website. So getting back to this interface, we'll go to the next icon, which is the camera icon. And we have the video resolution. Video resolution, 4K, 30 frames per second. I don't think you can go any higher than that. From what I understand, Apple does not give access to that to the developers. I'm not sure if that's true or not, something like that. But you can record slow motion. I'll show you that elsewhere in the app here. The next thing is manual adjustment. And for you photographers out there, or for someone who really wants to lock down the exposure in a setting and doesn't want white balance or any of that kind of stuff floating around, if you tap on that, you'll get this bar at the top. And then let's go over here to shutter, for example, and I can move this over and set the shutter speed. And you can see as I move it over, you see the exposure coming up finally. So that's our shutter speed. We can also set the ISO, and we can set white balance as well. If you find yourself in a situation with the lighting's kind of weird, you can mess with this until it's equal so it's not jumping around, which is good if you're panning around in a room with different color temperature lights. So that's a nice little bonus, but most of you will probably leave it in automatic. So we'll just go back to auto. Then we've got the white balance here. This is just settings. You could, of course, use that manual adjustment to do the white balance. But if you find yourself in auto, which is an okay setting, or if you're outside, a cloudy day, neon, sunny, under incandescent light, or you want to do custom, which is very similar to what I just showed you a second ago. Then our next button here is the grid, which I like to leave on because it just gives me reference on the horizon. But there are some other options in here as well. You can do grid and diagonals. You can do the grid lines, which is what I had set up. And you can also do this center point. Not sure why I would use that, but personally, I like the grid. So I'm just going to go back to it. And then we have the flash. So if you're doing some stills, I don't think the flash is going to work for video. And then our next icon is the gimbal, which is just the profile of the gimbal, in case you're wondering what that is. And then you have your scene mode, which controls how fast the Osmo is going to pitch back and forth. If you're walking, it does it slower. If you're in sport mode, it pitches back and forth a lot quicker. Then pitch lock. Pitch lock can be useful because right now, by default, the camera is going to follow you depending on how you pitch and roll the Osmo. You might find yourself that you want it locked in a specific place, and it'll just stay at that angle. So let's see what that looks like when we have pitch lock turned on. I'll go ahead and turn it on. And now you'll notice when I pitch it forward that the angle of the phone stays exactly where I locked it. So this could be useful if you want to pan up and down, like vertically up and down, but you don't want it to tilt. So if I turn pitch lock back off, you'll notice that the phone follows me. For those of you with an iOS device, you can actually digitally zoom the screen. All you have to do is hold the trigger on the front, press and hold it, while pressing the joystick either forward or up, or zoom out down. So you can see here, if I push it up, I zoom in, and if I pull it down, I zoom back out. That's only for iOS users. All right, so now let's move on to the settings, which is the gear in the lower right-hand corner here. So I'll just tap that. And then here we have our camera settings. This is where we can choose our video resolutions, and you saw where else we could do that from the front end. And I don't know if this is me or when I turn it off and on, but it seems to default or always move from where I have it set, which is usually 4K, to some other. I haven't quite figured this out yet, but it seems to randomly move. I'd like to hear if anybody else is having that issue, or if it's something I'm doing inadvertently. I'm not sure. So anyways, you can control video resolution. Let's go back. A camera reset. I've never done that. I'm not sure exactly what that does, but I'm sure it does exactly what it says. The gimbal, we can do calibration here. You might find, I haven't run into it yet, but I also have a DJI Inspire 1, and I've had to go in and do some manual calibration to level the camera sometimes. Now, I would think you could take care of this, and I think that's why it's important that you balance the gimbal before you even turn it on. And I haven't had the issue with the Osmo Mobile yet, but if you want to just manually adjust the gimbal, you would go in here and hit where it says adjust gimbal roll, hit start calibration, and then you can use this plus and minus to slowly tilt, and you can see how I don't know, hopefully you can see this. As I'm adjusting these, it will slowly offset the gimbal. Like I said, I haven't had to use it yet, but if you run into this, this is where you can go and kind of offset it. We'll go back in here to settings, gimbal, and then there's this auto calibration. And if I hit start calibration, hit OK, it's going to go through a whole series of tilting and turning, and it takes a couple of minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward. I think you get the idea. Since you can't actually see the gimbal, or I'm not showing that, it's kind of hard to see. So there you go, the gimbal calibrated. Let's go back into settings. And general, of course, is just the version of the software, little battery information in case you have an issue with that, and the device name. This is where you can go in here and change the name, and this is the name, of course, that shows up on your Bluetooth device list. I haven't changed it yet, obviously. And then if you want to go in here and actually do a live broadcast from it, you can go in here to one of these services and do a live broadcast. So that concludes the right side of the icon. So let's go back over here to the left. As you can see, we are in camera mode, indicated by the little camera video slider button over here. And then right underneath it, when you're in camera mode, if you tap that little icon, the little mountains, this is where you can choose the type of mode you want the camera to be in, whether it's single, long exposure, where you want to do a timed image, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or if you want to shoot an HDR. I think all those are fairly self-explanatory. Let's go up here, and I'm going to click this and go to video mode. And again, if we click the little video icon, we can see that we are in standard mode. You can do slow motion. Remember earlier I spoke about slow motion. This is where you can actually record slow motion. You can do time lapse, and if I tap on time lapse, it's going to ask what the interval is going to be, either a half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds, and we can just scroll this. I haven't gone too far over here, but wherever you need to. I usually shoot about 3 or 4 seconds. That's up to you, of course. And then the duration. Now the duration is not the duration of the finished product, but the duration as far as how long you're going to shoot. So generally, if you're going to do 3 seconds, and if you shoot for 30 minutes, you'll end up with I think about a 30-second-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. There's calculators online that you can go to. If you just Google time-lapse calculators, you'll come up with one. Anyways, the really neat that I like, this is one of the main reasons that sold me on the Osmo in the first place. If I go back to here, is this motion time lapse. So if I tap on here, I get this little bit different dialog box. And what this allows me to do, now if you're going to do this, obviously you want your Osmo on some type of tripod. You don't want to hand hold any type of time lapse. And so then I'm going to use the joystick and just turn the Osmo over this direction. And if I hit the plus sign, that says, okay, this is where I want to start. And then I can rotate the Osmo. It doesn't matter what speed. It doesn't really care what speed. And I'm rotated over here, and I hit the plus sign again. And I can put in as many points as I want. Generally, you're going to put in an A-B point, but you may want to create some type of sine wave, or you may have some kind of reason where you're shooting up and over a tree. I don't know. That's up to you. But you can store several points. I'm just going to do 2. I'm going to hit next. And then, of course, that same dialog box that we saw earlier, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to leave it at a half a second. It doesn't really matter because I'm only going to do this for 30 seconds just so we can see it move through its motion. Then I'm going to hit start, and you can see it's turning. It goes back to that same point, and look how it's just slowly panning. Now, of course, if you were doing this over a 30-minute, you wouldn't see it doing this unless you just checked it every few minutes. You might notice it's moving. But I used it the other day to make this little video, and I'll just show it to you here real quick at the end of this. So there it is. It's complete. It does an excellent job. I apologize for the subject matter, but here's a quick little 30-second time lapse that I did. And as you can see here, it is nice and smooth. All this was set on auto, and I just let it sit there for about 30 minutes. Of course, when it's done, it'll stop on its own, and the light on the front of the Osmo, the left-hand light, is usually red when you're recording video, that is, and it's blinking red. So when that stops blinking, then you know you're done. Okay, the last feature I want to cover is, you'll notice down here in the bottom left, and actually before I get that, I'm leaving out what actually this little yellow circle is. That lets you know that you can tap on the screen and it will focus at that point you tap on, and also you see the brightness scale to the left. So if I just tap anywhere on the screen while that's active and I move my finger up, 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 it'll brighten the screen. You can't really tell here because it's already so dark, but you can see if I go darker, it'll get darker. So it's only going to go so bright because it's kind of dark in this room. I'm doing this late at night, so I apologize for that, but it works. If I tap on this yellow circle, it's going to turn into a green square. And this is a really, really cool feature. This is another one of those features that sold me on the Osmo. So in this split screen demonstration, I just draw a square around the product, which happens to be the Osmo box. I thought that was fitting. And as I move it around the room, you can see the phone actually tracking the product, which is another feature that really just sold me on the Osmo. I think this is a great, great feature. I did a charity event over the weekend, and I've got some footage here that's a little more practical use of using this feature on it. Let's take a look at that. It's a charity event called Habitat for Humanity, and here's just a little shot I did driving by just a couple of houses. I was in the car, just held my hand out the window and shot this as I went by, and you can see how nice and smooth. And I just held my hand straight. I didn't turn the Osmo, I didn't do anything. It just tracked all on its own. Very cool feature. Well guys, that wraps it up for this video. All in all, I think the Osmo Mobile is a great device. It sold me. I'm not an impulse buyer when it comes to this kind of stuff because you never know, but the Osmo has been out for a while, and even though it had its proprietary camera, I was a little gun shy of that because I do have the Inspire 1 and I can use that camera on the Osmo, but the camera's not that great. It does great in daylight, it's 4K and all that, but it has its issues as far as quality goes. Although I've shot plenty of ranches and I have a small business that shoots a lot of ranches and some real estate and some other miscellaneous projects that I've done. And it's done a good job. This would be great B-roll stuff. I did some B-roll as I showed you in the video earlier that a company is going to use for their promotional work. So, you know, it worked in that. What I liked about the mobile, what really sold me, was not only the tracking and the tracking over for time lapse, which was really great. Those two items are really what sold me. But what I really like is the fact that whenever I upgrade my phone, I've got a better camera. Whereas if you get the Osmo and their camera, that's a $550 camera, and it's not that great. So I much prefer using the camera in the phone. You're a little restricted with a couple of things, but for what it's used for and for $299, I just don't think you can go wrong. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. It's getting a little dark in here. And if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. This is my first review, so be gentle. See you guys next time.